Resilience is, of course, an ongoing journey, and it's not always easy, but it's also not always now I'm resilient, and that's just sort of like a static fixed thing. You're either resilient or you're not. But there's lots of different aspects to it, of course. And so what do we mean by resilience? I suppose we're talking about this element of bouncing back, right? This element of not losing balance, if you like, of being able to either resist, although I don't like that word, resist, challenge and change, or being able to, I think balance is perhaps a better term, this bouncing back towards a sense of balance. And so as I was thinking about it, I was thinking, if you were to imagine that you're on a tightrope and you're maintaining your balance on this tightrope, there are times when you find yourself tipping and you need to come back. And so being resilient doesn't imply this constant sort of impeccable centeredness all the time, I think. There is the tipping, and it's the act of knowing what to do, recognizing the tipping and bringing ourselves back to that sense of balance in the middle, back to center. And so eventually, yes, as we train ourselves, we would find that there is greater balance and less tipping. But to begin with, I think it's all about learning to stay on the tightrope, to get back, and get back on when we fall off completely, right? Not to be too self-critical and judgmental, but to get right back on again and engage with the practice. And so building resilience is, of course, it's a daily practice. And I think there are different key aspects that came to mind, at least when I was thinking about it. And the first and essential, the key, is self-awareness. And so it's spending time cultivating awareness of your own psychophysiological experience. So, noticing when there is a tightening around an event, something that's happening to you, something that somebody has said, a tightening physically, how your face might flush, your hands tighten, your chest or your stomach ends up in knots, these sort of physical reactions to an event. But then mentally as well, how your thoughts change. Do the nature of your thoughts change? Does it spark certain memories, certain types of thinking? Do they quicken, in response to something? So noticing as well what's happening in the mind. And these sort of reflections, these moments of awareness, they will come from meditation, of course, spending time being alone with your mind, watching your mind, but also they'll come from reflecting upon your emotional episodes. So this is where the Cultivating Emotional Balance program has a lot of value here. And so you're reflecting upon your emotional episodes, you're thinking back, reflecting back on times when you became emotional about something, and you're analyzing how that went. What were the triggers? Become aware of what your triggers are. What was the bodily response? What was your psychological response? And what was the automatic behavior that typically comes out in such a situation that you don't usually choose? What's that automatic behavior? And becoming aware of all of this helps you, well, first of all, you need to be aware of it to be able to do anything with it. But it helps you then to be able to plan in advance. That self-awareness is key, so that and you can notice the process of emotion as it takes place. Because for most of us, if we've never spent any time cultivating awareness into our emotions, there's not much that goes on. Somebody insults you, you get angry, and you've already shouted at them. And that was it. There was nothing else that occurred. But as you reflect on your emotions and you become very aware through meditation, you become aware of how your mind and how your body reacts to situations, then the process of emotion slows down, not necessarily in real time, but your awareness of that emotion slows down. And you become aware of so much more that goes on between, Viktor Frankl says, the stimulus and the response. You notice there's so much more that goes on there. And so you may choose then to pause between the stimulus and the response, to pause, and then perhaps elect to do something different in that situation and choose to try and respond in a different way. So I think self-awareness is really important here, getting to know the ways in which your mind works, the ways in which your emotions work. So self-awareness, this would be the first key. And this, of course, comes with a sense of kindness, I think, being another aspect. Kindness and self-compassion, that sense of friendliness, that sense of being your own friend, right? If we think of loving kindness, one of the aspects of loving kindness is befriending ourselves. And so how are you treating yourself between these emotional episodes? That's really important. If there's a great sense of judgment and shame and self-criticism, well, can we turn that to the presence or the affection of a kind, supportive friend? If you were to go to a friend and you were upset and you were hurting, and they were to tell you, oh, well, you shouldn't be thinking that way anyway, and you should be, the kind of things we tell ourselves. I'm not sure you would go back to that friend very regularly. You wouldn't think of them as a very kind friend. And so can we befriend ourselves? Can we be that supportive presence for ourselves? Not judging the fact that we're struggling or feeling a certain way, but holding ourselves with that kindness, knowing that we can work towards perhaps better responses, but not that sense of judgment or shame. And then really this is going to come from our own practice, right? Relying upon the Buddha and his teachings. The Lojong teachings particularly are very good for this, for cultivating a sense of resilience, that sense of balance with the trials and tribulations that come our way. And so fill your satchel with antidotes, right? Fill your backpack with antidotes. So for anger, have compassion ready to go. For greed, have generosity and contentment ready to go. Patient acceptance. Have these minds ready to go. And so resilience and Lojong, of course, is a training. And so I'd say start small. Start with whatever today's mundane challenges are, right? And bring your very best self-awareness to your own responses. How are my responses arising? What are the stories that I'm telling myself? With kindness, right? Not judging, with kindness. And then try to accept the situations. Accept that which you can't control. Have the courage to change what you can, but accept that which you cannot change. And release the tightening. That I want this to be different. Release that tightening. See the situation as impermanent, right? See all the causing conditions that came together to create such a situation. And have that sense of courage in the face of uncertainty and adversity. This sense that, this challenge may be here and it may be fearsome, but what really matters in life is not the presence of a problem, but how I respond. And that part is within my control. The fact that this problem is happening in my life, by and large, not something you control, right? Life happens, things happen to us. And what happens to you does not sort of characterize or define what your life is or who you are. It's how we respond. And that is something that we can learn to be within our control. And so we can say, well, I choose in this situation to the best of my ability not to be angry. I choose not to become unkind, not to become hateful, not to allow my heart to contort. So we need to take a certain stance. There needs to be a stance taken, whilst holding ourselves and everyone in compassion, in that kindness, in that gentleness. So you might recognize within there what I've just described. There are the aspects of patient acceptance. There's a sense of acceptance, there's understanding, there's compassion, fortitude, that mind there. So they're all present. And so in this way, slowly, day by day, challenge by challenge, we learn not to be as easily shaken by the challenges that come our way. We're taking a different stance, ready and willing to face our challenges head on, to see them as, yes, perhaps it's a challenge, but there's also perhaps an opportunity here for growth and learning. Everything can be our teacher if we're open to it. If you're closed off to it, then it's the worst thing to have ever happened to you. But if we can be slightly open to this, to recognizing and can I work with everything? Can everything be workable in some way? If there's a direction of travel that I want to move in, if I want to be more compassionate, more kind, more patient, more loving, how am I ever going to cultivate boundless compassion unless I am challenged by people in which I need to respond with boundless compassion? It's not just going to be one day, okay, there you go, you have all that compassion that you need. You need to train it. And you're only going to train it by being challenged by such people in such situations. And so all of this, and of course meditation is a key practice in building resilience. Through meditation, certain practices of meditation like shamatha, where we develop a calm and clear mind, that gives you good grounding for being able to be more balanced and more centered with challenges. Meditations like the shamatha or vipassana modes of observing the mind, observing our thinking, our space of our mind. This allows you to observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming overly attached to them. So you can learn to almost have this sort of observing your thoughts without identifying, without grasping. And that sort of separation where you hold them, you're fully aware of them, you're not suppressing them, you're fully aware of them, but you are not acting within them. That separation helps you to respond to situations with wisdom and equanimity and compassion rather than just reacting impulsively. So you sort of change your relationship with your thoughts. And I think all of this resilience is about starting small. it is about starting small. Often when we think, I want to be more resilient, and that sort of thought comes up, we're thinking about the bigger challenges that are hitting us day to day. And sometimes there are big challenges that come our way in which your only option is going to be to sink or to swim, right? You're either this is going to be the thing that completely overwhelms you and makes you fall apart, or you're going to have to rise to the challenge of this. So there are those situations that come our way. But then for those of us who are perhaps more fortunate or less fortunate, depends how you look at it, the challenges are smaller. And as best we can, as those challenges come our way, we do our very best. Today, instead of avoiding the difficulties, instead of just shying away and pretending like it's not there, I'm going to face them with courage, with grace, with my very best resources that I have today, right? The very best wisdom I have, the very best compassion that I have. And it might not be perfect, but being aware of our vulnerabilities, being kind to ourselves, and developing our mind in the best way that we can. And so for this, rely upon the Buddha, rely upon the teachings, and rely upon the Sangha as well. That's why we have our Sangha here. So whether it's in this session here or on Thursdays when I'm not here, or whether it's through WhatsApp groups or whatever, relying upon our Sangha for the challenges that are coming our way and saying, look, how do you think I can best work with this? This is what I'm doing, this is what I'm noticing, and a problem shared is a problem halved, and all those things. Sangha can be a really good support for these sort of challenges that come our way. And don't expect too much from ourselves. Little by little, challenge by challenge, we balance ourselves and we walk that tightrope. You don't become an expert tightrope walker in the first day, the first lesson, do you? Just like you don't become an expert pilot in your first lesson, expert pianist in your first lesson. It takes practice, takes time, as does any sense of emotional balance or resilience.